Namaste to all. In this short audio, we will understand a very, very beautiful Ved Mantra, Yajurved 31st chapter, which is Purusha Sukta 6th mantra. The mantra is like this. Om Tasmat Yajnat Sarvahutah Sambritam Prashadat Jayam Pashunstansh Chakre Vayavya Naranya Gramayaschaye. My Acharya always tells a very, very beautiful advice. He always says that before worshipping Almighty God, understand who is that Almighty God. Today everybody worships Almighty God in different forms. But before worshipping God, we should understand whether are we worshipping the right Almighty God. Are we not worshipping a God which is an imaginary God? These are the things which we have to understand, and to understand that we should understand Vedas. Because when God creates the universe, in Purusha Sukta, God beautifully describes how the universe gets created. And the universe gets created and it gets completed. The creation gets completed by the donation of the knowledge of the Vedas. So that Almighty God who is creator of the universe and who gives the knowledge of the Vedas and who introduces who is that Almighty God, that is the God which we have to worship. And that is the God which we have to know. Suppose you are going to a new place, you are living in, let's say, Delhi, you are going to Bombay, and if you are meeting some people, you have to introduce yourself. My name is so-and-so, I have come from so-and-so place, this is my intention, why I have come to your place, I need your support, whatever it is. You have to introduce, give your biodata. Similarly, when the universe gets created, in the new creation, God has to introduce himself to the human beings, otherwise nobody will get any knowledge about Almighty God. So in Vedas, God has introduced about himself. So we have to always obey Vedas. That's why Patanjali Muni says in his Yoga Sutra, Sa Yesha Purvesham Api Guruhu Kalena Navachedat. God is the first Guru because he never dies. In the previous creation, all the Rishi Munis, Acharyas, Yogis, Tapasvis, everybody has died. They have left their body. Of course, they will remain in moksha only, but they are not in the body. So in the new creation, God only gives the knowledge because God does not die. So the mantra beautifully explains a very, very important definition of Almighty God. We have to always match, are we worshipping this Almighty God or anybody else? If we are worshipping anybody else by any other means other than the Vedic path, then we should immediately get fearful about Almighty God, because God says in Vedas, do not worship in place of me anybody else. So here the mantra says, Tasmat Yajnat Sarvahutah. Tasmat means that Almighty God. That Almighty God means in the previous mantra also, in Purusha Sukta, 5th mantra, 4th mantra, 3rd mantra, every mantra is speaking about Almighty God. So Tasmat is coming as a pronoun referring to the previous mantra. Tasmat Yajnat. Yajno vai Vishnu. Yajnat means from that Almighty God who is Vishnu, whose name is Vishnu. Vishnu means not Vishnu avatar. Vishnu means omnipresent Almighty God. Vishlari Vyapto Vishnuhu. That Almighty God's name is Vishnu because he is omnipresent. So from that omnipresent Almighty God, Sarvahutah, that Almighty God is acceptable for worship by everybody. That is why he is called as Sarvahutah. God himself says in this mantra, I am Sarvahutah, I am acceptable. You have to, oh humans, you have to accept me as Almighty God. And this is also giving a very clear indication that Vedas are acceptable and Vedas are applicable for all the human beings. Hindu, Muslim, Sikh, Isai, Parsi, Jain, Buddha, etc. Buddhism, these are the religions which were created in the last 3000 to 5000 years. Whereas Vedas are given by Almighty God at the start of every universe creation. So Vedas are eternal knowledge. They do not belong to Hinduism or Christianity or Muslim, etc. That is why God says Sarvahutah. It is applicable for all the human beings. Everybody should worship me only, and everybody must worship me only by the way what I have told in the Vedas. Today many Muslim brothers argue with me. You are speaking about Formless Almighty God. I am also speaking about Formless Almighty God as Allah. So I am also worshipping the God. I always say that the way of worship has to be Stuti Prarthana Upasana. The way of worship has to be name jap of Almighty God, which is Om. If you are doing it, then it's okay. Otherwise, you have to correct it to the Vedic path. If you are not correcting it, it's your wish. So Sarva Hutaha means that Almighty God who is acceptable by all the human beings for worship. And God says Sambritam Prishadajyam. Sambritam means in Hindi Siddh kiya hua hai. Siddh karta hai. Means what is that God is establishing firmly here is Prishadajyam. God says, I am creating this universe, I am creating the human beings, I am like your father. So what God does is Prishadajyam. Very, very clearly we have to understand who is God. Prishat comes from the root word Prishu. Prishu means to moisten, moisture or pouring. Hence Prishadajyam means, Prishat means that by which food our hunger is removed. So God creates the food by which our hunger is removed. And moistened food means like curd, like ghee, like butter, like honey, etc., etc. So God creates all the food necessary for the human beings in the initial days. God creates the food also because otherwise we will die out of hunger. So God creates such moistened food which will give us all vitamins and minerals and proteins or whatever it is, so that the initial human beings are able to sustain. Even today also it is only with the help of God's grace we are able to do agriculture, because all the knowledge of agriculture has come from Vedas only. The sun is created, without which agriculture cannot happen. Sun is created by God only. So today also the food is given to us only by God. We are not accepting it. It's a different matter. So Prishadajyam, God firmly establishes the required food for the human beings. Not only human beings, for all the creatures actually. So God says, not only this, Prishadajyam, see, we have to carefully analyze Ved Mantras. We have to go into the depth of Ved Mantra. If somebody says Prishadajyam means God is the one who creates the food, that means we should immediately able to correlate that somebody who is taking birth here and who is eating the food here, who is eating butter, who is eating ghee, who is eating milk, who is drinking milk or eating curd or eating honey, etc., cannot be God, because God does not create these things for him. God creates these things for human beings. So we cannot say that Sri Krishna was Almighty God, Sri Rama was Almighty God, Jesus is Almighty God, because all these people lived here eating the food produced in this earth. Whereas God says in Rig Veda 129th Sukta of 10th Mandal that I am living in the Pralaya before the creation alive, and I do not need air to breathe, I do not need food to eat, I do not need water to drink. And that is the power of Almighty God. So God does not create the food for himself. God creates for human beings, and anybody who walked on this planet cannot be God. This has to be clearly understood. So if we are worshipping Sri Ram, Sri Krishna, Hanumanji, Lord Shiva, etc., we are not worshipping Almighty God. We are worshipping the humans, which is prohibited by God in the Vedas. And further the mantra says, Pashun stans chakre vayabhya naranya gramayascha. He creates the animals. Pashu means animals. He creates the animals that are worthy to live in the jungle. Aranya means jungle, in the forest. That means like wild beasts or lion or tiger, crocodile, etc., etc., which are not worthy to live in the gram, in the village, in the city. These are the animals which are living in the forest. And God says that I am also creating those animals for gram, for worthy for living in near your households, like cat or dog or cow or horse, etc., etc. And God says another important thing, Vayavya. Vayavya means he also creates birds, he also creates insects, and he also creates such animals which gives us happiness as given by the air. Without air we cannot live. So he creates such a useful animal for us, so that we can derive milk from it, or from that we can make ghee or other products, and we can sustain in this life. And that is why he is calling those animals as that which gives you happiness like an air. because air gives you happiness when you breathe. Without air, we will die in suffocation. So Chakre, God finally says, I am the creator of this universe. Do not worship anybody else. Know me as the Almighty God. These qualities, who creates the food, who creates the forest, who creates the animals in the forest, who creates the domestic animals, who creates everything including the air, and also those animals which will give you happiness like that of air, and birds and insects, etc. That is the God whom you have to worship. How to worship? By Stuti, Prarthana, Upasana. How to worship? By listening Vedas and adopting Vedas in life. How to worship? By serving the Acharya who has attained Samadhi. How to worship? By doing name jap Om every day, morning and evening. How to worship? By doing Gayatri Mantra jap. How to worship? By chanting Ved Mantras, by explaining and spreading the knowledge of Vedas to everyone. These are all worship of Almighty God. So that is the definition of Almighty God. Unless and otherwise we know, we understand God, we can never worship the God. So we have to worship the God which is given in the Vedas only. Otherwise we are doing a grave mistake. Our life is getting spoiled. That we have to be very, very careful. I hope you understood. Thank you so much. Namaste. Om.